It's a real honor to stand up here today and to introduce Max. Max is a dear friend of mine. I serve on the board of the fellowship, which he's definitely a big part of. He is making his own way in ministry with 12 Rock. He's bringing rugby to the forefront. I don't know what you guys know what rugby is. So basically you have the sport that you use your hands with and you call football. In England we call that football. We use our feet. But here you seem to call it football. It's got an oval shaped ball. Okay, that's you stole rugby from us and you started throwing the ball forwards. We throw it backwards. But anyway, Max is probably going to tell you a bit more about rugby. He manages to be able to teach kids in 15 minutes what it takes most of us years to learn. He's packed out the room. I think when I spoke, there were about 7 people here. The UN were in town, right? But I'd like everyone to give a massive round of applause for Max. It's such a blessing to have him here. God bless you, pal. I pray that you get up here and you have a great old time. You share your testimony. God bless.
Hey everyone, we're good? So, Chip, let me explain to you how to communicate with a rugby guy. Next time he busts your chops, swift little nut tap, bang, quiet him down real quick, all right?
Can you like elaborate on what a nut tap is?
I can show you, no. Yeah. Hey guys, Max Weber, BJ Weber's my father. I'm a retired firefighter. I had an injury on the job. I had to retire early. And so this was really an unexpected honor to be here today. I certainly was never expect to speak at NCS. Growing up as a kid, young man through it, it's really cool to be here today. Mike's like, yeah, 9/11, come talk. I'm like, oh my gosh, what an honor. And I'll tell you, this has been really tough for me to put this talk together on this day. It was a lot harder than I thought, so just bear with me, and we'll get through this day together. And so I just want to get a quick pulse of the room. How many people knew my father? If you give me a raise of the hand, just kind of want to get a pulse. Oh wow, probably way more than half. Okay, all right. And I'm curious, how many people are kind of under the age of 30? Raise them high. Let's see them. Under the yeah. So just trying to like 9/11 was in your memory or not, or if you were alive, you know. So, and then anybody, you raise your hand if you were in New York City or the immediate New York City area on 9/11. You give me a little hand raise. Okay, so we're still a group here. And I was actually curious how the rest of the world always looked at 9/11. Were any of you guys overseas? Lived overseas during 9/11? Yeah. All right, so we got a good group of that too. Thanks, guys. Just wanted to get a little pulse here. And, 9/11 is one of those stories that everyone seems to want to jump in and be a part of. Like if you were talking in a park or a library or on a plane, you start talking about 9/11, people want to like jump in and tell their story, right? It's just like they interrupt you. I don't mean to interrupt, but this is my story, right? Everyone seems to do that. I don't know if it's just kind of like a 24-year group therapy session. Everyone kind of jumps in. This is what I went through. But has anyone else found like they start comparing their stories like to other people? Like, well, my story is more tragic than your story, or you don't have the right to feel that sad. Look what I went through, or oh, you saw it on the news. I was there, or something like that. Or I lost a loved one and you didn't. You shouldn't feel as. Anyone compare? I find myself. Men don't think like that. Yeah, right. Well, we don't admit it. We don't admit it. Yeah. Well, and whenever I feel angry or even resentful, if I feel angry and resentful when I feel someone doesn't give it like the proper respect. Maybe they're too jovial about it, and I personally feel old. I coach college rugby too, and I feel old. Does anyone else feel old when they talk about 9/11 to people that weren't alive? That makes me feel old. You feel old regardless? Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's weird for me that's already being dissected as like a history, like, some of these other big moments, like the JFK assassination, right? It's ancient history for me, but it's still very much in living memory for many, many people in this country, right? And then even, I bet there's some 95-year-old that feels disrespected by how we're talking about Pearl Harbor, like how it affected them. And that's still in living memory, but barely, we're forgetting it. It makes me try to think about like November 11th at 11 a.m., 1918, Armistice Day. Like, is that one of those moments that we've totally forgotten about, or like the day the Titanic sank? I was trying to think about all these other days that are very unique. And anyway, those are probably similar moments in time. And, obviously everyone has, or most people probably have a strong emotional response to 9/11, but they're all in different ways, right? So if you're like a 45-year-old woman, mother of 18-year-old, maybe you're thinking, my son's going off to war. Like, what do I do? How do I protect him? Maybe you're just maybe you're a 50-year-old businessman and you're thinking about all the families who's you're affected and that you're control of their money and the market is crashing. And, how do you help them? I don't know. It just everyone in a different situation, right? So I was 16 and a half years old when the towers fell. It's my first day of high school. I grew up in the city. Grew up not too far from here, and kind of went from that normal teenager, thinking about college, girls, sports, figuring out who I was and what kind of man I wanted to be in Christ. And, in that instant, it just like this awareness of evil in the world, like came crashing down upon me. And I didn't really understand it. It was such a shock. It was like this numbness for days. It took a long time for that anger and maybe even like rage, right, to set in. I don't know if a lot of you guys remember that. I want you all to imagine, especially the younger guys, this limited information that we had when I was 17, like anger, confusion, fear, hopelessness, great grief and sadness, injustice, justice, fascination, like. And these experiences and emotions, they'd go in cycles, right? And but these were times I felt real emotions, like, and you don't have to raise your hand for this, but has anyone ever felt the emotion of like true hatred? True hatred, right? Or how about maybe even bloodlust? I don't know. And when you're, we're all guys here. We know why 17 to 20-year-olds fight wars, right? And it's actually a studied, proven fact. 30-year-olds make much better soldiers than 18-year-olds, but there's a reason why teenagers go to war, right? And I was so taken back with these new emotions, and the thing I wanted to do was just retreat into being a kid. Again, I think that was my natural response, and when you're a kid, you look to adults to see how to react, right? Your kid falls off a bike. They look to mom and dad. How upset should I actually be, right? It's kind of the same thing. Teenagers are just big kids, right? And usually, the adults had it all together that day, but every adult lost it. Like that, you're like a kid. You're like, okay, let's look at the adults. I'm not an adult yet, actually. Let me see. And everyone was freaking out, right? So you're like, all right. They didn't have that capacity to calm us down or reassure us, or like have that stone face, but in the corner behind closed door freak out. No one had that capacity. And like this limited information. I remember, I guess September 12th or 13th, I lived sort of close to the Empire State Building and looked out of the window at 10 o'clock at night, and there's just droves of people walking east on my street, and you're looking out at 10 o'clock at night a few days after the fact, and you just walked out the door, and you're like, what's going on? And they're like, we're evacuating. There's a bomb at the Empire State Building. You could have made up anything. Anyone would have believed it. Like, anyone would have believed it. I talked to fireman friends that thought there was literally landing parties of thousands of people with guns. Like, generally people, you could have said anything. Anyone would have believed that. And so we got out and we evacuated and we ran to the East River. I was not ready to deal with that process. Like, coming home and seeing people on my doorstep like covered in ash. They couldn't get home, and they remembered who my dad was. You know, maybe he hadn't even seen him in 10 years. That was crazy too. Or seeing people walk up, nowhere to go, and my father was so immersed in helping people that day, and my mother, that he wasn't around at the moment, right? Like, I wasn't ready to deal with that process, and he was at ground zero, and he was doing funerals, and he was at counseling centers, grieving with people. If any of you read his newsletter or this chapter in that fellowship book, my father and mother put together a book, you can see why. And I just look at that deep, deep exhaustion on his face. And my sister's oldest friend was going from hospital to hospital looking for her mother. You know, they didn't find her. She died that day. And one of my stories, maybe a lot of you guys can relate to. Any of you guys play with Army men as a kid? I sure did a lot, right? And one story that I had repressed, and my mother had to remind me of it when I was like 30. I totally forgot about it. And then when she started telling me about it, I remembered. And like a day or two after 9/11, she came up to my room just to check on me at like 4 in the morning, and my lights were on. She opened the door, and every inch of my room was covered with Army men. Every inch of it. And I was having this elaborate, like, it was like an 8-hour battle. I dug into my old toys and brought them all out. And she's like, Max, are you okay? And she said, like, you know, it's hard for her as a mother. She goes, I just want to get those guys. I want to kill them. I want them all to die. I just want to get those guys. And she just slowly closed the door. And anyway, that's kind of my, like, reverting to childhood maybe, I don't know. And if you guys, this is a really hard talk for me. I don't know if you guys knew this, but the cancer my dad died from was 9/11 cancer. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but it was in his time at ground zero. And far more people have died from 9/11 cancer than actually on the day. This will stay in living memory actively for ever. You know, there's preschoolers down there that have already died now in their 20s. You know, there's more than 50,000 people, I believe, with cancer from 9/11 today. And we all have moments in our life where we kind of like left our childhood behind. Big moments. Whether we became a man right after that or an adult right after it is a different story. What makes you a man, when did you become a man, what's your definition? That's another NCS talk maybe, not today, right? So I was angry, directionless, 17-year-old. But my biggest frustration was my inability to do anything. And men are designed for purpose and action, right? I think we're all like purpose and action. So what could I do, right? So my initial reaction was, I want to go to war, right? I want to join the military. I want to be on the front lines. I had a friend in the 101st Airborne, dropped into Baghdad. I wanted to do that, right? Well, as a prep school in New York City, saying you're going to do anything besides go to college was just like saying like you wanted to go to be a homeless person, professional homeless person or something. They're like, what? It just wasn't an option unless West Point and Annapolis, right? Those are great places, but my parents convinced me to like take a beat, go to college, join the military after, and I think they were hoping it would cool off my emotions, join the military and really hurt somebody or get back or revenge would cool off. And it didn't. Through college, I couldn't shake the ideas and emotion of that day. So I mentioned that my dad did all these funerals for the local firehouse guys. You got to know our local firehouse lost 9 guys that day. So we got to know all those guys, the widows, and a lot of them retired after that. And one of them moved down to Nashville where I was in school. And he kind of kept an eye on me. And he was a guy that I could talk to and that I knew he knew how I was feeling in some way. And he really pushed me and sold me on the FTNY. He sold me on this bonded brotherhood thing that I was seeking. But instead of like killing people, he's like, we talk about fire as in the fire department as like the devil, the red devil or the dragon. We got to fight the dragon. The dragon's out of control, right? And the dragon wants to kill people. It's in the walls. We got to contain it, right? So it is a fight, and I'll tell you, it's the most exhilarating thing you could ever do, especially as your adrenaline's pumping. There's fire over your head, surrounding you. You're crazy hot, but you don't feel it till you leave, and you're breaking through doors. You're dragging people. It really is a battle, right? That kind of. And he said, let's harness that instead of hurting or killing people. Let's put that into saving the lives and property of the people in New York City who were so affected by, fire that day on 9/11. So there's that direct correlation. And if you guys don't know, the number you guys should know would be 343. That's how many firefighters died that day. So, and about that many have died from cancer since. So, being with my father, I was familiar with that potential depth and brotherhood that was sold to me from this fireman. I grew up in this situation, and growing up, my parents were involved with like 2 or more dinners a week. Dinners were big for them, as a lot of you guys know. If there was a dinner free week, that was a rarity. I mean, I know a lot of you guys knew my father, but how many of you guys went to a dinner in his house, in his home? So plenty of you guys, right? So you kind of knew kind of like what I went through. And I grew up in that, on the top steps when I was 6 years old, pretending to go to sleep, or I was just kind of in the corner. I was always around this. And it was a great experience. There was always excellent food. That was key. Excellent food, excellent atmosphere, and a non-rushed environment, right? The topics were carefully considered, or just fun and jovial, but she tried to cater them to the individuals that were there. And my expectation of the firehouse was that this environment already existed, and I could walk right into it. Every firehouse, 3 meals a day, 11 to 13 guys sit around a table together to eat. 3 meals a day. It's a huge part of their culture. So I thought I'd just step right into that. Well, great, I'm used to that. Well, my expectation was wrong. In the firehouse, friendship looked a lot different than in these circles or the circles I grew up in. And I didn't know how to add to that culture. I maybe even tried to change it at times, and that was a horrible decision. It made my time in the fire department very lonely. I made mistakes with those relationships, and I assumed that those guys, or all guys, were like the ones that were around my dad that I grew up. Super bonded, deep relationships, and they bonded over different things, right? It was like chasing chicks or chasing adrenaline, right? Those were big, or getting drunk or fishing trips or whatever it is. A little different, but they don't, talk on those fishing trips or hunting or something. And, I was part of those first NCS retreats that were so powerful. It was like a male fellowship Shangri-La. It was a huge number, but it was like tangible. Like it was a big number, right? And I still have bonded from guys from like the 2005 retreat, without social media. And I just figured the firehouse would be great. But like I said, it looked different. They bonded over different things. But I would go deep. If I had the opportunity with the firemen, I would go deep. And the next day they wouldn't talk to me. They'd look like I had seen them with their clothes off, and they were vulnerable with me in a moment, and they, kind of rejected me from then on. Didn't have a friend. It was, I don't know. It's just very interesting. And this is not just a bash on firemen. This is a lot of guys, right? This is not. I don't know if you ever experienced this. Like there was a junior pastor at a church I attended in the city, and I thought we were going to be best friends. Like he's a couple years younger than me. I thought we were going to take the city by storm. We hit it off. We had a couple really great times together. I'm like, we'll take over another church, whatever it is. And after a few great hangs, he just totally ghosted me. In the same church that was there, he politely ignored me for years until he transferred. So this is not just a bash on firemen, it's men in general. So you guys are countercultural by being a part of things like this, And I think 9/11 changed the firehouse culture anyway, I think I would have had more success there 30 years ago. I don't know. It wasn't just the guys that died. It was mass retirements after, and the guys that were left had no energy to carry on that culture that was there. That was just a bedrock of the fire department for 150 years. And, there's usually 5 or 6 guys with more than 30 years in every firehouse. And when I got there was like one guy with more than 20, right? Like just to put it, so it was left up to the kind of the rookies to continue that. And they did the best they could, they tried, but they didn't have it modeled for them as well as previous generations, So I realized I had to create that community that I desired. And I did it in the only way I knew how it was modeled to me, and I invited people into my home. I hosted them for a dinner. And at my first dinner, I moved out of the city. I didn't know anyone. I just started asking people around. The first dinner, I think I had, 10 or 12 or 15 guys or something. I didn't even know most of their names. I would even talk to like their wives and be like, you got to force your husband to come, right? And they would kick their husbands out the door, right? And they'd get there, And not a lot of men seek what I was trying to build. How many of you guys have trouble getting a guy to come to NCS at 7 in, right? Right? They're like, what am I doing at 7? Is it a church service? No. It's this group of guys that get. Is it a cult? Is it an intervention? No. Is it a Bible study? No, it's none of those. Come on, it's 7 a.m. before work. 7 a.m. You guys know how hard it is to get. So anyway, but to my surprise and God's glory, the dinners I've hosted have just been growing exponentially. Almost everyone wants to come back, and at this point, I'm busting at the seams. I've had to cap the number of seats. I've had to do back-to-back nights, and the guys are there. I have to promise that I'm going to talk about the same things on both nights. And we have the numbers probably to go to 3 nights, but my wife would kill me, I think. And that table that was in my father's basement, I was able to get that up to the table up into my home about an hour northwest of here. So, well, these dinners are successful because there's a real, there's a relational give and take, right? It's not just guys listening to a speaker or following a curriculum to be followed, right? It's prompted conversation where everyone has a chance to share and receive wisdom. You can receive wisdom from anyone at any age, I think. I can. I feel like I can. And I didn't really realize how much guys were looking for this, because I was surrounded by guys that were getting it a lot, often, sometimes, And also because of how much vitriol I received from the fire department for trying to create this confidence, right? Everyone has people in our life that give and take, right? You have a relationship that's someone in your life that they just take from you, right? And you love them, but after you hang out with them, you're exhausted, right? Their problems are bigger. They never ask you a question about yourself, right? And then you have the give and takes, hopefully at least your wives, and at least hopefully no other women besides your wives. But you also owe it to your wives to have a male friendship that you can give and take. If that's your only give and take, that's not fair to her. Like you need to pursue that. That's not fair on her to put all that on her. And then we all have relationships that hopefully we take, and that's okay. That's okay to have all those things. I think that makes us like well-rounded human beings. NCS is such an incredible group. Jim, how many guys did it start with? The first meeting, did you have 10 or 12 guys before work in New Canaan? Like, what would you say?
The first meeting was 25.
25.
And within 3 months, it was down to 10 or 12.
Down to 10 or 12. All right, but see, okay, 10 or 12, right? So the early groups were 10 or 12. What other group was about 10 or 12, That's what I thought. Yeah. It doesn't really make sense. Go from 10 or 12. And I don't know if the numbers are the same, but I remember a few years ago, we had 60 chapters, 20,000 guys, international chapters. That's incredible. I'd like to think a lot of your Thursdays go a lot better than your other days of the week, starting here, right? And NCS is designed to show up and take, right? And same as church. It's amazing. It's a good thing. It's clearly a testament to the success, right? But did the 11 disciples after Jesus' death and resurrection, did they go find another mentor or find another temple and just kind of sit and receive? No, of course not, right? We know what they did, right? And a lot of those 10 or 12 NCS guys were just part of the bedrock of 60 chapters. My goodness, how that started. I'm not telling you guys to start a new chapter. I'm just trying to yeah. Currently I work for 12th Rock Ministries. I forgot my business cards today, which, But we're in the business. Well, I don't know. Greg, do we all get a hat? No, 12th Rock is in the business of relationships and fellowship. And we get people through the door through sports. But that's our business, relationships and fellowship. And Greg was right there in the green shirt. He's my boss, colleague, I guess, now. I don't know. And if you get a chance to talk to him, he's got an amazing story how 12th Rock came together. And I look forward to staff meetings. I've never looked forward to a staff meeting in my life. It was just incredible to, because of the relationships of these guys, which is still very new, by the way. I've only been working with them for about 9 months, but I'm just totally feet first in it. It's so new. Greg, how do you pronounce your last name again? Jill Wins? There it is. I'm still, no, just kidding. Yeah. So, anyway. Well, listen, through 12th Rock, separate from my other men's dinners that I've been doing, I've started young men's and young adults dinners. And they are eager. They are eager to discuss life and depth and seek and share wisdom themselves. And it's so foreign to that generation. It's like the 18 to 22-year-old crowd. And they'll drop anything to attend. It's been powerful. And the way they look at things is different, of course, but it's really great to see them give and take. And it started as a rugby team, right? And it's developing already into so much more just a few months later. And, I think God was preparing me for this next stage in my life through the household I grew up in, to the trauma of 9/11, to my failed male fellowships in the fire department, and my early retirement. I can see how God's laid this all out for me. And my encouragement to you is to just pursue the depths of relationships. Jesus did not mean for us to be on this planet to just give or just take. It's not a healthy option, right? And I'm not in a rush to get out of here. I kind of have a formula on how these dinners work. They're great. You can talk to me about it. I forgot my cards, but 12th Rock, my email's on the 12th Rock website, 12throck.org. And on this day, this 9/11 day, it's let us not forget. Even if you weren't alive for it, let us not forget. And don't be timid to talk about this day. It's okay. It could be group therapy for somebody else, And friendship and fellowship can be a short moment, really a short moment, guys. Don't be embarrassed to go to the next level with the next guy. You never see him again, or he blows you off, whatever. Don't be embarrassed to do it. Try. Remember some of the people who died on this day. They were holding hands with someone that maybe they'd never met before, right? Right, and that friendship, that depth right there before death, like they're holding straight, that became their last friend, right? And you don't need a decade to invest in relationship and fellowship. So just kind of want to leave you with that on this day today, and have a quick moment of silence, and I'll close in prayer, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we just pray for all the loved ones today that are mourning still. We pray for the people in the world that are so angry things. I pray for, just yesterday, Lord, pray for Charlie Kirk and his whole family and just the anger in this country and all over the world. Just, we need you more than ever. And I pray for the friendless. I pray for the friendless and those without fellowship, that they may find what you desire for them. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
My coffee.
Max, that was awesome.
Thanks.
And really took me back to that day. And it was a real watershed. And I just appreciate the way you helped us dial into the different emotions of that day. That was really, really rich.
I think people forget.
What?
I think people forget the severity of the emotions that day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think.
It was
the whole world. It was
Yeah.
it was a really scary day. There's so much uncertainty. Yeah, and experienced collectively, it was really amazing.
Yeah.
And dark. You said a lot in different ways in your talk. You talked about like taking a relationship to the next level, giving and receiving wisdom, and, creating the community you needed. How do you know it when you see it? Like, how do you know that it's not just a?
How do I know if someone's right?
It's not
to
a
go
shallow.
deep?
Well, it's not a shallow relationship. Like, what are some of the signs of it that's a deep relationship or deeper?
Someone being honest with a fear or a struggle, I think. And a lot of times, almost every time, you have to start with being vulnerable yourself, And then if you're vulnerable yourself and you see how they react, you could see if they're ripe to respond, with vulnerable with some of your failures or your inadequacies,
Can you like think of an example of how you've done that? Like even like what you've said, because I think there's certainly that that pompous jerk kind of guy who's just telling you about all the people he knows and everything he's done. That's not being vulnerable at all. But then there's also sort of the overshare kind of opposite version where like they tell you all this like almost overwhelmingly weird
Yeah, you
stuff.
have to
how do you do that?
So like let's say for like a dinner, right? Maybe I'll circle one guy that I'd like to get to know a little bit better, and I'll ask him to come over early and help me cook, right? And then you can kind of slowly, and then I even tell him about what I think about talking about that night. So it's kind of like, hey, I want you to help me. I'm going to ask you some questions too, but that's slow. We just talk about family, and you have to go into it slowly, and then I think one of my friends sat down next to my father. And he's like, watching a rugby game that I was playing against, FDNY against the Cops, actually. He told me later, he's like, your dad's like, good to see you. So what's the biggest problem in your marriage right now? He's like, oh. Let's jump right into it,
I've heard that before. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm not saying to do that. You can say it in a little more, how'd you go? You're going through, and they're like, yeah, all right. I mean, we're business guys here. We're professional people. We're adults. Like, you can kind of read if someone's ready. But you can say what's going on and say, yeah, I'm really struggling with my wife with this X, right? This communication or this failure. Like, we're struggling with that right now. Or maybe physicality, right? Maybe it's, I wish, I struggle with being, my wife has let me down and I feel terrible about it. Well, I've let her down too, right? Maybe I've been, things like that. And then you could see if they kind of tighten up and want to move on, or if they hear that and like, oh, I'm sorry, man, tell me more about that, right? And my biggest thing is like, generally, if people don't ask, they don't really want to know. So if you're just like verbal diarrheaing somebody, they don't really want to know. So you give them some, and if they say like, "Oh my, really? Tell me more," then that's your kind of your opening.
It's kind of like fishing. Like you're just throwing it out there and seeing.
Yeah,
they bite.
I would say that. I could say that. I guess I'm not. Yeah, I'm terrible. Talk about frustrating. I'm a terrible fisherman. Oh my gosh.
All right, we'll pick a better metaphor next time.
No, it is like that, and in the fire department, one thing I did learn, first thing I walked in the door and they said, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, be quiet, right? Like just listen for a while first. But it's hard to listen without prompting people too. So it's a balance, and then like, someone that is, I'm going to treat somebody that's 15 years older than me different than someone that's 22 years old, right? So like at this young men's dinner, these kids were jerking around at the end of the table. I'm like, all right, big deal, Christian. My dad used to say that. All right, we're on you now. And then I did like a, let's go, And then I'll say to a guy that was there, I'm like, what have you, like, let's use your wisdom. Like, how have you experienced this? I say, I've struggled with this, John. How have you handled this specific thing? And that's in the group setting, kind of, but you can put it on people like that too. This is what I'm struggling with. How have you handled that? And then sometimes it just will flow right into it,
Yeah, I really like that because it's like it's the sweet spot. It's like not too much, not it's not nothing. It's intentional, but it's also there's a ease about you of just letting it play out and see where it goes. And I think that's worth noting, gentlemen. I think that's really good.
It's hard to do it in 10 minutes too, of course,
Yeah.
right? So you like Parker's not here today, but he does a dinner at his house every couple weeks. A lot of the guys are NCS guys. I know Park, but he also has individual relationships with these guys eventually too. Let's meet for lunch. Let's meet for a coffee. So I mean that's another thing. So in 12th Rock, right? I get people in the door through sports. Now I'm getting them to my house through dinner, and now I'm also meeting these guys for breakfast. I've had 2 brand new Christians in my group, my young men, and then a couple that are questioning really hard, and they want to meet me for breakfast. And then this one young man, I've known him rugby. He's 19 years old. He got a girl pregnant. She wanted to give the baby up for adoption. He refused to let her do it. And there was a whole thing. And I even got involved almost with this private adoption situation, and it bailed out last second. And and then he's totally abandoned her, like totally, completely abandoned her and this baby. But guess what? He still comes to rugby practice. So I have his ear, and I know this family. She's daughter of a pastor in a local church. And I have his ear, and he'll meet me. He comes to my rugby practices, he comes to my dinners, and I'm meeting him for lunch this week, right? But I couldn't just say, hey, let's go grab lunch. Come.
It's like a funnel.
It is a funnel, yeah. That's exactly right. So you have a funnel in your life, and then the dinners have to be a place where a secular person can come to. It can't be a Bible study. You can't, as the host of a dinner, you can't be like, Jesus, you can't, you just got to talk about what you're going through as men, right? And then someone might be like, how I get through it as Jesus for this or that. And people kind of, maybe they notice that guy's got it together and he leans on Christ, or this guy has it a little more together. And then they develop their own relationships, or they can see that way, So it has to be a place that everyone of any religion, faith can come to. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you miss about the fire department, being a part of the fire department?
Man, I've saving someone's life is really exhilarating. Like, I remember this 50-year-old woman, we got there, we were able to get her heartbeat back, and she died, get her heartbeat back, and just like the pumped up nature, like it was like better than scoring any touchdown. Like it was just like, yes, we're like chest bumping in this room of this family member. We couldn't contain ourselves, And she later wrote us a letter thanking us that she gets to spend the rest of her life with her family like that, Or that was really cool. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to work with physicality. Like that physicality is really. I don't miss waking up at 2 a.m. Like the micro tears in firemen's hearts are just like, it's a thing. Like, yeah. Anyway, firemen have a lot of heart issues because you're going from like 50 beats a minute to like 180 beats a minute in a matter of minutes, right? Like when the alarm goes off at 2 a.m. So I don't miss that at all. But I do miss the adrenaline of it. It is really cool, Yeah.
How do you see like sort of the path or trajectory of that desire to fight, and when there was a kind of a direct line from maybe military to fire? Mm-hmm. How do you see it now?
Honestly, I think rugby is a huge. I think every guy should play a little bit of rugby. Honestly, there's an incredible desire, there's incredible adrenaline that goes into that, and maybe football or wrestling or boxing. I think that's a way for someone that's not in a physical sport to do something, not just working out. I think if you can do it, if you physically can do it, you should do a hard competitive sport. I think that's why sports are still so popular in this country. I really, Americans love sports, And I think that's a huge reason why. I think why 12th Rock has been successful, but you know, and I coach now, and as you're getting older, as I'm getting older, maybe that desire, you know, becomes less. I don't know if I'm answering the question properly, but I don't know if I'm answering your question right, but.
No, I really appreciated you bringing that up, because I think a lot of us, whether it's a collective experience like 9/11 or something else, there's things we're angry about, and we want to fight, and we want to have something to do, and I think, and there's not a lot of avenues, especially constructive ones, to do it.
No, I remember on September 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, people were getting attacked in the streets. Like, if you looked like a Sikh was getting attacked, remember that? Like, people were getting just absolutely, that rage, they were taking it out on people on the street. Like, you look like you could be from that region of the world, attack. And it happened all over. It was like, that was not harnessed, right? Like, and I remember, like, that didn't bother me as a 17-year-old. I'm like, oh, I can understand that, you know? And it was just a crazy time. Maybe you don't understand that now, but in the moment, you know, it was wild. That's how people were taking out that need, right? Like, some people joined the military. You understand why after Pearl Harbor, why the entire country signed up, right? It just makes sense, right? Yeah. But I didn't really understand that until 9/11, right? So, yeah, I don't know if I answered that question either.
Right.
It was a
One last question for me, and
tangent.
then Chris will come around with the mic. We have time for a few from you guys too. But you know, one of the things and you said this, like, this was a hard talk, and we could tell just in your, you know, your countenance and voice that this was hard, and that it brings up a lot of hard things from the past, and even just the loss of, like, being injured and not being a fireman anymore, or being a retired firefighter. Like, where do you go with that pain? And like, your dinners in some ways are, I'm sure you're, like you said, you're getting something out of that, but you're probably more giving. Like, do you have some, like, how do you process that?
I find, in my dinners, I give more than I take, but I really do try to take. I try to talk to the guys. I do try to pose it as I'm getting. It's not pretend. I do, like, oh, that's interesting how you get through that, right? And I try to find my own. I think one of the loneliest professions is the head pastor or the clergyman, right? I think it's lonely up there, and so I'm not a pastor, but I just, like, I have to find my own community that looks different. So, like, I have to find that relationship that I can just take from, and I'm okay with it. Like, that's great, you know? And yeah, it's not easy when you're trying to, you know, but I do try to get stuff out of the dinners too, you know? I really do, you know? And the best first dinner conversation, just to, like, break the ice, is I talk about the loss of my father. And I get a poll, who still has their father, whose father is deceased, right? And the question I ask the whole table is, for the guy, if your father is going to die tomorrow, what would you say or do with him, right? If you could have your dad back for a day, what would you say or do with him? That's a great first question for a great brand new group of guys. And then they just start, and they might not even answer that question, but it gets them talking about their home life and this and that.
Yeah, it's real. It's soulish. It's not, like, superficial.
No, it's not. And then you have a guy that just goes into this, well, I've never met my father, huge arc into a guy's like, I had the greatest father that ever lived, but my mother was a nightmare, right? I don't know. Like, you know, and just, it's not superficial and it's real, but it's also not like, how's your sex life with your wife? You know what I mean? Like, how much porn do you watch? It's not like that. That's embarrassing. Or, like, how much do you bench press? People get embarrassed by that question. I don't know. But, like, no, but, like, people can, that's one that people can often get into, you know?
I didn't know porn and bench press were in the same.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
this church I was in, we just interviewed a pastor, and I jokingly asked him how much he bench pressed. He's like, that's a very personal question. I thought that was hilarious. So.
All right, guys, let's have a few questions.
Thanks so much, Max, for the presentation. Respected your dad so much. He was a man of wisdom and inspiration. So my question is about his legacy. I mean, he was a NTS trailblazer. What would you say is the greatest piece of his legacy for me as somebody who wants to be all that God created me to be can hold on to from your dad's legacy?
Sure, thank you. He had so many. He had a gift of like starting so many projects, and he had, I think, the humbleness to like step away, right? So he started these orphanages in Bolivia, right? But he's like, okay, I'm gonna step back and let somebody else run that. You know, he thought about moving down there, but he didn't, right? Or whether NCS, he was a big part of it in the beginning, and then he just kind of like, all right, it's someone else's. Or he helped start the Crisis Pregnancy Center, or little leagues, inner city little leagues, homeless shelters. My dad and Ed Koch worked together to get a homeless shelter in every single church in New York City. We stepped back. And there's a kind of, and he never wanted or took credit for any of these things. That's just a handful of things, right? And I remember somebody asking him in the beginning, like, what is the New York Fellowship? I don't understand your mission. And I love this. And he just said, I'm available. I'm available. And just being available. I think that is part of his legacy is, no pride, being humble, and availability to everybody, So
That's great.
being available.
That's great. It kind of relates to, you said a number of times, just this idea that dinners are unhurried, and
Yes.
that's part of that.
Well,
presence.
that's why it's hard to do it at a restaurant, right? It's hard to do it at a restaurant. I know when we're in New York City, tiny little apartments, but it's hard to do it at a restaurant. There's a stress of this atmosphere of, anyway, yeah.
So, what made you retire? Why did you retire from the fire department?
I had a very bad knee injury. It was, shoddy construction in a Chinatown sub-basement, and there was a fire in the back. So I wasn't near the fire, but it was near the smoke. You really can't see anything. Smoke was pumping. I was on the stairs. I was at the bottom of the stairs, and the stairs collapsed. And I don't know how. It was dark. I couldn't see. I kind of landed up on my back, and it was a small collapse, enough to make us fall. I think maybe the handrail came. Anyway, I landed on my back with my leg up on the ground. I was on my back, and like 2 or 3 guys landed on top of my knee and just tore everything in there. ACL, MCL, PCL. The LCL held on barely on the outside here. Bilateral, both meniscus. A few surgeries later, a couple years in rehab, and on modified duty. They're like, all right, enough is it. We can't wait for you any longer. Time for you to go. Time to retire. So that's what happened. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, good morning, Max.
Good morning.
Jose in the back here.
Hey, Jose.
Appreciate you coming out here, and thanks for saying yes to the opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm actually one of the few that don't know your father, actually. He was before my time, even though I'm just 3 years younger than you. But my question is, so thank you for being vulnerable. When you were going through all that, those emotions, those raw emotions from 9/11, how and where did Jesus show up for you?
I was actively pursuing Jesus in my life at that time. Being a New York City kid, I was often the only Christian kid in my class. So I remember even in second grade, a 7-year-old poking his finger in my chest and saying, "The Bible is a book of lies." And so I kind of was already like really pursuing these tiny groups of Christian kids. And I give a lot of credit to this camp that Jim Lane went to as well, Deerfoot Lodge. Deerfoot Lodge is a Christian camp for boys only, in wilderness camping. And I would just being surrounded by this incredible Christian group of guys, even 2 weeks a year. It was like a retreat, it was like an extended NCS retreat, but for boys. And all we did that whole time, we just praised Jesus that whole time. So I had this great base of that. So then when I was on my own, I could seek it out. It's funny, my father had a lot of time for me, but one of his regrets near his deathbed is that he didn't, like I asked him at that age, 16, to walk through like the Bible with me. I'm like, Dad, I really want can we like walk through it together? Like, you lead so many men in this way. He's like, oh yeah, absolutely. And you know, he's a busy guy. He never got around to that. You know, he made all my soccer games, but he never got around to that. And it was like one of his, I didn't even remember that. And then it was like one of his like deathbed regrets, you know, and that he admitted to me, you know. And but I definitely, I was a little young. Kids kind of separate emotions. You know, it's hard to have more than one at a time. So like, it's like if I'm having this anger and rage, it was hard for me to pivot and say, you know, to go to Jesus. But just making intentionality to be around other Christians, you know, was big for me. It's how I leaned into that, to not walk through that totally alone. Anyway.
Hey, Max. Behind every good man is usually a good woman.
Yeah.
And so with your childhood experiences, could you maybe mention one of the best ways that you would think that your dad's ministries were both your parents, your mom's and your dad's?
Mm-hmm.
One way that she really supported him. And was there maybe a time where she was like, honey, you've bitten off a little more than you can chew? Like, so like a way she supported and a way she maybe reined him in to say, you know, let's focus on these 5 things and let's not do 6.
Yeah.
And how does that inform things with you and your wife?
Well, my mother in the earlier part of her marriage with my father was it was hard. She described it as very hard, and she just said yes to whatever he said, right? And she remembers going out to Iowa to visit his mother, and he goes to his, hey mom, I'm having like 18 guys over for dinner tonight. Let's get, and she's like, no, BJ, no. He goes, but they're coming, no. And she's like, what? Someone can say no to BJ Weber? My mother, early in their relationship. So she said, I think she said no to almost everything. And then like how much he pushed back was how much he really cared about it. I don't know. But she understood how much was too much. And but what she did was, instead of starting to just say, no, you can't do that, he's like, well, what's your support behind that, right? Like, he would say, I'm not being the only person that is going to be your support staff on that. Who are the men that are helping you with this? Who are the young men, the interns, whatever it is? But I think that today, a lot of women, especially in Christianity, are leading the relationship, and they're kind of dragging their husband along. And I think it's very important that my mother is a very strong woman, but she always looked at my father as like, well, he is the leader of this relationship. He is the follower of you know, he's leading me in my walk as well, right? And so with my wife and I, you know, she doesn't have to do these things, but she's just she's very respectful, and I think that's really key for me and her. I mean, she'll, you know, for example, small example, she doesn't have to do this, but she like, hey, honey, do you mind if I go buy a $40 bra? Of course I don't care if you buy a $40 bra, but she asks, you know. I mean, that's a tiny little thing. And, you know, if I stopped going to church, she wouldn't go to church without me, you know. And sometimes she'll challenge me, like, I need you to be a better leader in this household of Christianity. We've let that go away. So instead of her taking the reins, and she goes, I need you to be the leader with our children. Like, I don't want to be the one and you're off to the side. So she challenges me privately, never in front of anybody else. But she looks at me truly as a leader. So my kids are 7, 6, and 4.5. They'll go, Mommy, who's the boss of the house? She goes, your father. She won't even say your father and I. She goes, your dad's the boss of the house. They ask, who's the king of the house? It's like, well, we're both the king. No, she says your dad, right? And maybe that's a little countercultural, old school, but like to our kids, it's just important. But when she pulls me aside and what that does is that makes me really care about her opinion. You know, I make very few decisions without like, what do you think about this? Like, I ran through this talk with her a number of times, so many times, right? And she was exhausted. She goes to bed at 9 o'clock, right? She was up until 11:30. I was practicing. I don't like this. No, it's good. No, I don't like this either, right? This was really hard for me, so I had to pull her into that. I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of rambling now. I'm sorry. I just don't know if that. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but I think her challenged me, like respectfully, when she doesn't feel like I am doing a good job leading. She kind of respectfully challenges me that she needs to be led more. She went to seminary. She understands the Bible really well, right? But anyway.
That was a great answer. And we just acknowledge that this was hard for you, but it was great for us.
Oh.
Really, really great. So thank you so much, Max. Thanks for being here. Thanks for everything you shared. It was really, really good.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. So Chris is going to come pray us out. And before he does, guys, before you leave, talk to a brother about this question. How are you creating the community you need? I love the way you said that. I think that's, how are you creating the community you need? Chris?
Max, thank you, brother. Thank you for your share, your testimony, and thank you for sharing your dad with us as well.
Yeah.
Right? Seriously.
Yeah.
Father, we come before you humbly this morning and thankful and grateful, Lord. In the turmoil in this world, in the grief of 9/11, in the grief of yesterday's assassination, Father, it is hard to remember you are King, that you are above all, and that you have not forsaken us. And we thank you for that reminder, Lord. And I pray over each man in here that he will hear that in his heart. Whatever the battle is that he will be fighting today, at work, at home, in a personal life, whatever it may be, that his eyes will be turned towards you and he will be seeking you through his son, Jesus. Father, we pray over Max as he starts this next part of his life with 12 Rock, that he will just bring your glory to those around him and that they will see Jesus in his face. And Father, I pray that you will give us the strength and the courage to represent you in our lives as well. We pray all this in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen.
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 Keep coming back, boys. It works if you work it.